The Horus Heresy, Yara, Burden of Duty by James Swallow. In the skies above Terra, the forces of the Imperium of mankind were preparing for war. The birth world of the human species turned beneath a haze of ash, the surface pockmarked by colossal city sprawls and high fences. It was a clenched fist of iron and stone, and from it rose spindly orbital elevator towers and the thruster trains of heavy transports. The planet was haloed by platforms and way stations of varying size and complexity, littering the low orbit and the gravity-null clusters of the Lagrange points. Ships crossed between them like motes of mercury over black velvet, engine exhausts glowing. A shroud of ever-moving armor turned about Terra, constructs as large as continents drifting as if they were gargantuan metal clouds. Some were gunnery complexes, little more than free-floating weapons aimed outwards into the void, like cannons atop ancient castle battlements. Others were command and control facilities, staging posts, shipyards and star docks bristled with battle vessels of every mark and tonnage, old hulls being refitted with new weapons. Some orbitals were the private habitats of imperial nobles and dignitaries, but even their exalted status did not protect them from the order of fortification. No one was exempt from the diktat the Emperor had handed down. Terra was on a war footing, donning her chainmail and sharpening her blades, watching, waiting. Out, past the orbit of Luna, secondary and tertiary lines of defense were already in place. Fields of autonomous cannon thrones and sensor webs floated in the darkness. Asteroids dragged in by tendrils from the belt beyond Mars over the bastions of the hard and green, the Hecate Shoal, and other portcullis groups. They prepared for the day they knew would come, the day when the sky would brim with the battle fleets of Horus Lupercal's rebellion, the turncoat warmaster, first among equals of the Emperor's Primarch sons, and never let his gaze fall. The planet was more than just a spiritual heart, more than the capital world and origin point of mankind. Pragmatic tacticians could say that a successful war against the Emperor might never even need to reach the light of Sol. But no one truly believed Horus would not do. This was his father's house. If he did not burn it or claim it for himself, then he could never claim that ultimate victory. This the Emperor knew full well, and so did the The architect of the fortification was one seemingly born for something else. Rogel Dawn, most steadfast and unswerving of the Emperor's sons, Primarch of the 7th Legiones Astartes, the Imperial Fists. It was said that Dawn was the greatest master of defensive strategy in the galaxy, and that a stronghold designed by the Fists could never be reached. Horus would put that thing to test. Dawn oversaw the great reinforcement effort from his flagship and star fortress, the mighty Phalanx. The size of a small moon, it was forced to remain clear of Terra's shipping, for fear that its great mass would exert a tidal pull on lesser orbits. Standing sentinel over the ongoing work of the defences, the Star Fortress was a grand artifice of gold. Rampart.
Okay, guys, I'm gonna get some coffee, so I will be right back. Just have to put the battery inside my camera. After that, I can start driving to the workplace, BRB. Fuck. I forgot my lunchbox. Well, guess I better go back and pick it up. Good morning, John. Just got myself some fresh coffee, but I managed to forget my lunchbox. I have to just go back and pick it up before I go. It has been raining slightly throughout the night, so it's only 14 Celsius at the moment.
Cathedral-like hall, acres of domes covered the skies. Phalanx was not only the flagship of the Seven, but also their home, with room for hundreds and thousands of warriors and support servants in its habitat. Lines of military traffic and freighters dotted the approach to the fortress. A complex dance of starships moving back and forth under doors and among them. Lost in the mess of Auspex returns, radiation backscatter, the small shuttle pod crept closer on stone-powered engines. The ship was barely worthy of the name. No bigger than a land speeder, the shuttle pod carried only a single occupant, a rudimentary drive system, and auto-navigation. What other space remained inside the sealed, scan-resistant hull was packed with sensor baffles and reflex shield devices. Craft such as this were typically deployed by Imperial agents or the killers of the Officio Assassinorum. But in this instance, the passenger was a markedly different on spiral in toward the hull balance. Autonomic systems waiting until the last possible second, via braking presses to slow. Magna grapples extended and drew upon the last broad span the service ladder, the corridor. Stealth protocol ran from the craft's cogitators, misdirecting the docking sensors and masking the unscheduled. The window of opportunity was only a moment, but it's enough. Unnoticed by the Imperial forces, an intruder had boarded their vessel, a ghost by many others. Its sole function completed, the shuttle pod disengaged and drifted away, blending back into the clutter of the space lanes. The lone passenger risked a single communication, a burst transmission message encrypted on a deep-level box channel. There would be no reply. One signal alone was enough for chance detection. I'm on board. Proceeding with mission. The warrior led the long shadows. The bulk of his close grey power armor half lit. He wore a large, thin robe of metallic material over him, giving him the look of a monastic figure out of old legend. Pulling it close, activating the device sewn into the surface of the robe. He became a glassy scan, a shape disrupted as if seen through a rain-slick window pane. The technology was rare, fragile, but the falsehood would shroud even an armored giant from a passing observer. Beneath them, Nathaniel Garrow grimaced. He did not approve of such clandestine acts, but he had no other choice. He was here on the direct command of Malcador the Sigillite, the regent of terror. Once a battle captain of the Death Guard Legion, Garrow had long since forsworn that status to become what some called a knight errant, one of Malcador's covert agents amidst the turmoil of galactic civil war. He moved to the past making ornamental columns, shifting from point to point, the eyes of the Crusaders, Imperial fist each of its men. Garrow crossed the great hall of victories, following the line, the statue guard, and the gallery of the arms. He had been aboard the Phalanx boats before, but under very different circumstances. Then Garrow had been a guest of the Seventh Legion, plucked from certain death by Rogel Thorn himself. It sat poorly with him that his return came under a shroud of secrecy. The corridors and chambers of the flagship were magnificent works of
I'm now
functional
listening
martial
to the
art,
Horus Heresy
heavy with banners from 100,000
in Warhammer
pictures,
40,000.
lined with works of art that celebrated Dawn's Legion and the high ideals of the Imperium. They were a glorious sight. Garrow had no time to plan. For the duration of this mission, he considered himself in enemy territory and would act accordingly. The only exception he had made to his usual preparation was to come bearing no sword. Libertas. Garrow had left his bolt gun behind. It signified that he would not, could not, shed blood in the prosecution of his duty. But if he were discovered now, he doubted that the Imperial fist would extend him the same consideration. Careful to remain unseen by his fellow lieutenants, Garrow bent the bolster out of his trailer, carried him slowly and carefully to the inner hall of the vast dark hall. The warrior's objective was inside. On the lower decks, toward the flagship's gargantuan engine. The chamber was known only as the A huge oval gate, titanium blue and ringed with locking devices, rose up before him. Garrow's eyes caught the symbol etched into the metal above the latch, a mailed fist against a white disc, the emblem of the Seventh Fleet. Rogel Dawn himself had struck that sign when this door had been closed, and if Garrow opened it, it would be Dawn that he defied. Inside the sealed chamber, behind walls of deadening black phase iron and psychic countermeasures from the dark age of technology, the Primarch of the Imperial Fists had willfully imprisoned a cadre of his own sons. They had committed no crime, done nothing to dishonor their brethren. These were steadfast warriors taken from frontline battle duties, men ordered to disarm and stand down by the father of their legion. They were Imperial Fists, somber and steadfast in character, and to every last degree Dawn's true sons. Yet they had accepted their Primarch's command without question. The only offense that these legionaries had committed was to be cursed with the gifts of the war. Lexicanium, Odyssia, or epistolary. They were the battle brothers of the Librarius, trained to use the power of their minds as a weapon. The Emperor's passing of the edict after the conclave of Nicaea had ended that service in a single moment. In the wake of the Sorcerer Primarch Magnus the Red's dalliances with the mercurial powers of the war, their weapons had been denied. The Emperor's orders forbade more use of psychic power for the legions, and now Dawn's librarians spent their long days in quiet meditation, isolated from their kinsmen and their future uncertain. Garrow reached into a pouch on his belt, removing a device that Malcador himself had pressed into his hands. The origin of the small crystalline object was unknown, but Garrow could not entirely banish the feeling that it was somehow hidden. When he had questioned the Regent of Terra on that suspicion, Malcador had said nothing, merely holding him in one steady, cold gaze. The device kept its word. The seals holding the gate shut opening in swift order under its influence. The reaction he felt good. Hidden outposts spun to reveal a pair of armored gun soldiers, yellow ribbon in the wrists. The machine slaves dithered, struggling to track the cloaked warrior. Garrow did not give them time to target. He gave the services no opportunity to raise the alarm before he attacked. Their neural cords severed, the mindless machines stumbled and crashed to the deck. Leaving them where they fell, Garrow turned back to the gate as the last of the seals disengaged. Brother Marcel He did not sleep, for the bio-implants of the Legion started to end. But he did dream. In the strange mind space of his meditations, as his thoughts turned in upon themselves, and he contemplated his fate. In the darkness, he sometimes saw glimpses of things. Skies black and oceans, creatures big bomb and hate, war and monstrous, war burning the galaxy with spiral lines. Time had become meaningless to myself and other sight. Isolated from the universe at large, the passage of weeks into months and months into years had fallen away until there was only the now. Massac was ready to wait as long as his Primarch wished him to, contain strength. That was his duty. The words came from no one, but the conviction beneath them seemed transient. None among the isolated librarians had been poised to any doubts about them. But a bitter thought very deep in Masak's mind threatened to rise to the surface. What if Dawn won? Secrecy. Brother Masak's mind snapped back wakefulness as he rose swiftly across the path. Suddenly, he sensed the flicker and fade of the gun servitors as the dim candles of their minds were snuffed out, and then the hazy shape of another soul. One hidden behind hard walls of counter-telepathic training and rigid thought. It could only be a legionary, but the identity of the warrior was impossible to grasp, and called upon his powers to push deeper into violate. Instead, he found a handful of his kindred and called them to arms.
Something is wrong. The gates should not open so readily. This must be some sort of attack.
Masak turned to see a grey armored figure appear as the falsehood fell to the deck. He was haloed by the glow from the corridor beyond, a power sword crackling in his grip. The librarian's weapon of choice was a force axe, two curved blades of psychically resonant metal forming the killing edges. It was in his hand in a heartbeat, and at his side his brothers drew their swords and forth rods.
You wear no colors or sigil, intruder. Give me your name and legion. Surrender your sword.
And if I do not, those weapons in your hands are but cold metal without your psionic power to charge them.
They will be enough.
Come with me, and we need not cross blades at all.
You do not command us. Now surrender your sword.
I do not wish to fight you, but I will not give up my weapon.
Then you will pay for your trespass.
Masak and his tiny brothers advanced upon him, launching a string of connected attacks that were each met. The librarian tried to find his measure of the warrior. He moved fractionally, betraying the presence of an augmenting replacement myth, but he was not slow. His great power sword deflected Masak's own weapon and forced the librarian back a step. The nameless one had the scarred face of a hard battle veteran and the prowess to match it. The Imperial fists were four to his one, but he held them at bay with unparalleled focus and skill. Masak grimaced, advancing. He let his brothers move in a swift pace, and then he struck, swinging the axe hard. Their blades met, locked, sparks flying. Masak glared at the intruder, searching his expression for some understanding of why he was here. Despite his iron self-control, in the melee some tiny fraction of Masak's preternatural power rushed across the mind of his opponent. A flash of insight came to him, the briefest glimpse of why the legionary had come to Seclusium. The shape of his true intention was almost within reach. Say! The look broke like brittle glass, new force and the burning, stony mind of a warlord, hard as granite, radiating cold fire. It eclipsed everything else, a silent inferno of pure will.
By my command, put up your weapons.
Roman Dawn filled the chamber with the great weight of his presence, his aura the very echo of the mailed fist upon his ornate armor. Flanked by his Huskarls, the Primarch of the Imperial Fist threw his stormy gaze across the Psychers and watched them each sink to one knee, bowing their heads. Masak followed suit, as did the grey-armored intruder. Dawn was a son of the Emperor, a walking fortress of a man, more invincible and unyielding than any construct of stone and steel. Few could have the courage to meet his gaze without flinching, but to Masak's surprise, the veteran warrior did so. Well met, Lord Dawn. Something like surprise flickered deep on the face of Masak's master.
I wondered if our paths might cross again. Did he send you?
With all due respect, my lord, I believe you already know the answer to that question. Dawn's eyes narrowed, and he gestured to one of his men.
To my chambers.
Masak watched Garrow sheath his blade and walk away in custom. As he crossed the Seclusium threshold, he threw Masak a nod, a gesture of respect, perhaps. The librarian turned and found the Primarch studying.
Your isolation should not have been disturbed. Those responsible will be punished. Return to your meditation.
gate will be secured once more.
Dawn halted, but did not turn back. The Primarch was silent for a long moment. The question, the real question, hung unspoken in the air between them.
Matters have become complicated. It is a crusade no longer, a war now. A war of brutal dimension and great sorrow. We stand ready to serve. I know you do, my son. I know.
Garrow looked around, taking in the scope of the Primarch's Sanctorum once again. The ornate chambers atop the highest of the Phalanx's towers commanded an impressive view of the Star Fortress. The wide oval space seemed now like an arena, and he a sacrifice sent to perish upon its azure floor. He sensed a presence behind him.
You recall what happened the last time we stood together in this room?
I watched the eyes of Stein meet its end.
After that,
Garrow still. It had been here that he had first revealed to Dawn the facts of Horus's betrayal. His reaction had been that of any loving brother. First denial, and then great anger, severe enough that Garrow had feared for his life. Considering his words carefully, he turned to face the Primarch. I brought you a hard truth. The burden of my duty.
as I recall, you asked me if I was blind. Perhaps I was. But no longer. I see clearly now. I must, so that my duty can be completed. The Emperor has charged me with the defense of Terra and command of all his armies. That is my burden. I am now War Master in all but name.
Dawn loomed over him, his eyes glittering like shards of flint.
I know what you are, Garrow. I know of Malcador's plans and his secret endeavors. I know that you and that old wolf Cruz are now his agents. The Sigilite uses you to gather material and to recruit men, many of them psychers, for reasons as yet unrevealed, and all of it in apparent defiance of the Emperor's commands.
The Primarch's heavy gauntlets closed with fists.
Ghost armor you wear, with Malcador's brand upon your shoulder. It may give you leave to go where you wish elsewhere in the Imperium, but not here. The Phalanx belongs to the Seven. You do not come to my domain in stealth and expect no censure. You will explain yourself to me.
He raised his hand to point at Garrow.
All this time, I will not hold back when they strike you.
I mean no disrespect, my lord. But my mission cannot be revealed, even to you.
You owe your life to me, Garrow. It was the Imperial Fist that rescued you and your men from deep space. You were adrift and facing certain death. Have you forgotten that so readily?
I forget nothing, my lord. True enough, I know the full weight of the debt I owe you, but my duty to the Sigilite is greater still.
What duty can require you to steal aboard my ship like a thief, break my commands, and disturb those whom I hold in isolation? You already recovered your port, Garrow. How are you going to escape? What did you want with the librarians? You will answer me.
Garrow breathed deeply, steeling his courage to openly defy the Primarch. I regret that I cannot now. For a long moment, Garrow feared that Dawn would make good on his threat and strike him to the deck. But then Primarch stepped back, his aloof rage simmering.
I do not accept your refusal. You will remain a prisoner aboard Phalanx until such time as you decide to provide me with the answers I have demanded. Here you will stay, if need be, until the stars themselves burn cold.
Before he could summon his guards to escort Garrow away, the Sanctorum's doors opened of their own accord.
Master, forgive my intrusion, but I must speak with you, Brother Massa. I did not grant you permission permission to leave the seclusium. Return there at once. I shall. I must obey this audience with you. The intruder, Garrett. I know why he is here.
Dawn's narrow gaze turned its full, withering power on his son.
Explain yourself. I can sense the truth he is hiding. It lurks beneath the surface of his thoughts. With your permission, I can reveal it.
The Primarch's arms folded across his golden chest plate.
You dare suggest the use of psychic power? You know better than any Imperial fist that my father forbids it.
But even as he said the words, Garrow saw the conflict in Dawn's eyes. Even as he knew he was honor-bound to follow the Emperor's edict, he could never ignore the great value of the Psyker as a weapon of war in the arsenal of the Legions.
We can hide nothing from the master. If only you will allow me to put down to the question. I will not deny them. But you will.
So basically, some of the chapters of
power is
Ultramarines or Space
It
Marines.
opens the door to misuse, just as my brother Magnus misused it. No. The Imperial fists are loyal to the Emperor in all things.
Magnus
My
is
father's
one of
decision
the
is the
brothers,
final word.
right?
If I may speak, I would offer
Arch
a
enemy.
compromise for Dawn.
Speak. I will hear you.
The librarian's instincts are strong, and they are correct. I came here for him. I will reveal Malkador's orders, but to Brother Massac and no other. He will know if I am truthful.
And if I refuse,
Then, my lord, as you say, you will have my company until the stars burn cold. The interrogation chamber was no larger than the interior of an armored transport. Dull, featureless metal walls rose up to a ceiling studded with human bones. A sluice grate in the center of the floor betrayed the spilling of blood that had often occurred here. Garrow and Massac stood opposite one another across the empty room. The former Death Guard was impassive, and as still as a statue. The Imperial Fist studied him, watching his face for the first sign of some telltale micro-expression that might reveal Garrow's true intentions. Are we being volatile? Garrow nodded. Tell me about the dreams, Massac. Of all the words he had thought to hear, the librarian had not expected that. Massac had spoken to no one of the disquieting images that had visited his meditating mind in recent weeks, growing more frequent with each passing day. We all do. Perhaps not in the way that common men think of it, but we dream. And you, your abilities, you dream very differently indeed. You haven't spoken of it. Yet the Sigilite knows. So do I. It troubled Massac greatly to know that his thoughts were open to others. But then Malkador was known as the greatest living psyker in the galaxy, after the Emperor of mankind, and it was said any mind was as an open book to him.
of skies, to the black oceans, a veil from eyes, legions of malformed humans, atrocities laying waste, atrocities, creatures the like of which have never been seen before in mortal realms.
Demons. They are no mere fancy, no trick of the mind. With stay. He revealed the whole bloody truth of it to him, seeing first shock, then revulsion, and finally fury warring across the legionary's face. I have fought these creatures, seen them born from the flesh of the dead. Your visions are
The future, then,
a possibility. What you have seen is why I'm here. Garrow took a step closer, his manner sobering. The Sigilite sent me to retrieve you. Malkador seeks men of strength and honor for an endeavor that will defend the Imperium against such threats for millennia to come. He chose you, Masek. He chose you for a duty that goes beyond your loyalty to Rogel Dawn and the Imperial Fists. The Grey Warrior offered his gauntleted hand. Come with me. Your seclusion will be at an end. Your power will be down in Garrow's stretched hand. He knew what the offer meant. A chance to end his isolation. To be useful again. To fight for the Imperium. But he shook his head, turning away.
No, I refuse. Tell the Regent of Terra that I must decline his offer. I am fist, a son of Dawn, and subject to my Primarch's command over all else. I will not leave my legion.
You realize what you are rejecting, Massak. If you do not come with me, Lord Dawn will return you to the isolation of the Seclusium. Prisoner there, an outcast among your own legion. You may never have another chance to be freed from the decree of Nicaea.
Now, iron and stone, sir. We do as our Primarch commands us. I do not seek to be free of the Emperor's mandate. I embrace it. I am of the 7th Legion, and we obey.
Even if the order brings you to doubt.
It's worse, like war. It's crazy. Even worse than a Jedi.
To attention. His gaze unwavering.
If Dawn speaks the words, then there is no doubt. My visions, if what you say is true, Garrow, if the War Master has betrayed us, if he makes pacts with monsters, then I must stand side by side with my Primarch and my battle brothers and meet this treachery head on.
That may not be enough to stop him.
I have faith that it will.
The warrior. Accept. I know the burden of duty all too well. I will see your words carried back to Malkador. He will not be pleased, but I will make him appreciate your choice. Garrow saluted him with a sign of the Aquila and strode toward the hatch. But Massak held firm, musing upon his words. Farewell, Brother Massak. I hope one day I will have the honor of fighting the enemy at your side. Yes, it will indeed.
Yeah, last time
Rogel Dawn stood waiting for him.
I drove here,
staring out at the great gallery windows towards the distant sphere of terror.
Let's see what we can find today.
Transport has arrived. Flying the colors of the Regent. Royal passage home. It seems that Malkador. I am within my rights to kill Garrow. This is a time of war. Are dealt with in most harsher manner. Is it not enough that we must guard against assassins and spies from the traitor kin? Must I protect myself from my own side as well?
I would not presume to say.
Of course not. You are a loyal son of the Imperium. My esteem is that he gives you loyalty misused. Do not tell to you to Malcolm. You are dismissed, Captain.
Garrow bowed, but hesitated a moment longer. Lord Dawn, your warrior, Massak. He has great insight that goes unheeded in his confinement. There will come a time when you will have use for them once more. You must trust in the Sigillite to follow.
I hear your voice, But Malcador's words. I value Massac's insight more than you can know. The Sigilite believes I act out of ignorance and fear. He does not understand. The librarians are precisely where they need to be. Locked in a vault, in the bowels of your fortress, they mark time like condemned men waiting for the scaffold. They stand ready, close at hand, in the heart of my legion. I will choose the role of Death Guard, not you, not Malcador. You ask much of them. These times not so much of us.
Is that all? Okay.
Garrow, Legion of One, written by James Swallow, performed by Toby Longworth. Once there had been a glittering empire of matches, a place of learning, of hope, civilization, and sanctuary. The pinnacle of all human endeavor, just one step away from the final evidence left on by time. Within the bounds of this infinity, peace reigned, and mankind flourished across millions of worlds. A great crusade of this kingdom's finest warriors, led by a brotherhood of demigods, angels, and giants, beat back the darkness at the edges of the night. They laid the final stones of the path to greatness. They fought in the name of the day when their weapons would finally be set to rest, when their emperor's great work would be unveiled. The day when everything would change. But the dream perished. Voices in the void sowed the seeds of dissent and reaped the chaos that spread. And in the firestorm that followed, kindled by old hatreds, envy, and distrust, the galaxy burned. Moving across the stars like a line of flame, the rebellion of the turncoat Warmaster Horus Lupercal raged upon, inching ever closer to terror and the throne of his father, the Emperor of Man. Step by step, consuming worlds, shattering the great imperial design, Horus, first among equals of the Primarchs, the Emperor's gene-forged sons, had embraced treason. And in his wake, nothing remained. Only ashen, silent battlefields choked with the bodies of the dead, mute witness to the murder of loyalty and honor. This planet was such a place. Here the traitors had sealed their revolt with an act of the greatest betrayal, and left behind the corpse of a world to mark the moment. It was a charnel house, a cooling ember thrown from the passing inferno. Nothing but death remained. From the poisoned, churning skies came an iron raptor, moving fast and low across a ruined landscape that had formerly been a magnificent city of great spires and ornate pillars. The ship, the Stormbird, was the color of ghosts, and no icons or insignia marked the hull to give trace of its origins. Alone in the wilderness, it settled to the ground in a cloud of dust. There were 3 warriors, and they walked like men, although it had been decades since any one of them shared true kinship with the common people of the Imperium. Each wore a suit of Mark VI Corvus Pattern Power armor, the most advanced build of war gear yet created. the Space Marines. They carried bolt guns and power swords, but went without helmets, faces bare to the biting winds, and like their ship, they bore no markings. Sigils of echelon and honor, of legion and fealty were absent, all save one. There, a hidden rune upon their shoulder blades, a stylized eye etched into the metal and ceramite, the mark of Malkador the Sigillite, the regent of terror and adjutant to the Emperor. Ready your weapons, brothers. Be watchful. Although no rank insignia showed upon him, the warrior at the lead spoke with the manner of a commander. Nathaniel Garrow, once a battle captain of the Death Guard Legion, had left his brothers behind when they turned their back on their oaths, joined chorus. Defying the guns of 100 warships and the madness of warp space, Garrow carried the message of the War Master's treachery back to Terra, only to find himself a warrior in search of a cause. It seemed like a long time ago. Much had taken place since then. Prospero, Calth, Cygnus Prime, a litany of worlds engulfed in the fires. But now, like his cohorts, Garrow had become a ghost. A knight-errant set upon the most secret duties ordered by Malkador himself. At Garrow's side, Tylos Rubio knelt, gathered up a handful of earth, sifted it through the fingers of his gauntlet. Above Rubio's head, a subtle halo of delicate crystalline circuitry gave off a faint glow. A ranked codicier, formerly a combatant psyker in service to the Ultramarines Legion, it had been more than a year since his removal from Malkador's duty.
I presenterar mot
His changed skills. Rubio closed his eyes, and a shudder ran as he allowed his psionic senses to extend and take the measure of the weight of the man.
Hallå?
The invisible traces of
Ja,
human
GPS sier at det er fram om 5
shades
minutter.
left like burnt
Ja.
shadows on a nuclear dimension. This place,
Ja, ja men den er god.
such a lot.
Ja, hva da?
We know full well what happened here. You have no need to rake the ashes and stir the memories of the dead. The third warrior bore the aspect of a veteran, the scars of countless conflicts upon a chiseled, granite-hard face. The stiff lines of Mesa Baron's features mirrored those of Garrow, but where the battle captain's scalp was shorn, Baron wore a tight cowl of dark hair and baggy beard. Like the former Death Guard, Baron too had forsaken his own kinsmen after they swore fealty to the Master. The lord of his legion, the gladiator Primarch Angron, sent his personal guard to kill Baron for his refusal to join the World Eaters in their sedition. Baron escaped with his life and an embittered heart. Garrow had offered him a new role as one of Malkador's operatives, but in truth, the duty sat poorly with him. Quick to anger like all the World Eaters, he longed to be out in the thick of the war, facing his former battle brothers. He lacked the cool detachment of the Death Guard or the stoicism of the Ultramarine. After a moment, Baron turned to face the battle captain. Why have you brought us here, Garrow? What reason could there possibly be for us to visit these blighted wastes? Because the Sigillite commands it, does he? And with ease, I do not doubt. The halls of the Imperial Palace are a long way from where we stand, brother. A long way from the memory of the atrocities committed in this place. The psyker gave a slow nod and winked. All I sense here is death. Would Lord Malkador have us bring the set? Try. But where this war began, there would be an ending of sorts. What do you mean? These tasks will be completed for the Sigillite, the conscript we have. Garrow silenced him with a raised hand. I will tell you what Lord Malkador told me in the Somnus Citadel on Luna. This will be the last. Neither Baron nor Rubio
warrior raised their voices to question him. Both Astartes reflecting on his words. This ruined world would mark the end of their quest for Sigilite's name, and yet all three warriors knew in their marrow that their greater purpose was still yet to be fulfilled. Far across the shattered city, buildings flanked by orbital strikes lay like great fallen trees. Those few that remained partly intact reached up, broken, skeletal fingers clawing at an overcast sky. Down in the rubble-choked streets, the voice of the wind was the moan of a dying animal. And upon the crumbling ramparts was a ceaseless torrent of dust. From the haze came a figure clad in blackened, war-damaged armor, moving across the rooftops to stand at the very edge of a broken parapet. He opened his arms wide to embrace the windside, the ragged, torn cloak at his back snapping like unfurling wings. Sighed and stepped forward to embrace the ground and fall and be dashed on the stones far below. Shall I try to die again? If only it was so simple. If only I could. He paused, leaning forward, almost as if he were daring fate to claim him. You cannot take me. You do not know me. You do not know my name. I am become Cerberus, the wolfhound at the gateway to hell. I am untouched. Do you hear me? Do you hear? The chainsword at his side was as ruined as Hephaestus' warrior, as broken as his mind. And yet, like those tools, it too could still function, could still kill. This destruction will never end. I have seen into the darkest heart of it. I tasted blood on the blade and the bird. I will see it rage on and on and on. The future will only be more simplicity as it was, and as it is, unless the traitors spun into treachery by the souls they sang in the night. I see the light of madness in my own eyes. I do not know the face beneath my hell. I see the dead and the dead and the dead palaces of corrupted stone, steam rusting my hands, careless and looking at it, crying out, spreading their filth and their poison. I see the mark of the three. I know what it means. If nothing else, I know that. I am Cerberus. Yes, I have been rejected by death itself. The peace of the grave will only be mine when the scales are balanced. I am the last loyal man under a galaxy of traitor stars, the undying among the dead. And I come for you. The warrior saw his foe and left it here. Those that called this world home had not been spared the fate of their world. Tides of lance fire, kinetic kill rods, and the vicious lash of bioweapon bombardments took their toll. Life was ripped from their flesh, savagely torn away. And yet, even among the ashes of their dead kindred, some pitiful remnants remained. They could not be called human. The force that animated them was life, but of a kind born of horror and pestilence. Bodies saved from instant death by happenstance or blind luck, these were the ones who had died slowly in the aftermath, vomiting up black, tainted blood, choking on their own foul fluids. These were the unlucky ones, denied the mercy of the quicker kills, their flesh intact enough to become.
Look at the house to the right here. Damn, it's a big place. Yes, he has some
Whatever
money,
remained of who they once were had
big
gone.
garden and everything.
Now they were only vectors for the plague to spread itself. Mindless meat things stumbling in the ruins. The warrior called himself Cerberus.
He loathed them with a furious, mad passion that had no end. He hated them as he hated himself, for like the risen, and yet but untouched by their infection. Death had rejected him, thrown him back, and so he would kill until it embraced him once more.
I am the storm's blade. I am justice. I am defiance and the oath keeper. I am alone.
Here, in the dead city, a great plain of blasted land lay churned, broken. Defense bunkers were cracked open like lifted tombs, trenches filled with floods of dried, blood-laced mud. Winds, the sound chills the burrow. Garrow, Baron, and Rubio navigated around deep impact craters where lakes of toxic water gathered. The rusted, burnt-out shells of land speeders and assault tanks lay across the side. And here and there, the grimy skeletons of soldiers stared the mercy of death by vaporization. Those sank back to look upon this place of hell. There is no such thing, Garrow. It's a figment of old idolatry, nothing more. We have no need for a place of horrors beyond death. Horus makes it for us here, in the real. The battle captain did not respond. A glitter of something golden caught his eye. In the lee of an overturned Rhino-class armored transport, it reflected the weak, watery gleam. Garrow approached and found the remains of a man, scraps, a grey-green uniform clinging to black bones. He bent down to take a closer look. Rubio approached him. What is it? Garrow leaned in, and with a delicacy that belied the bulk of his armored hand, he plucked a smoke-dirty icon from the cracked fingers of the corpse. It was a simple chain made of low-purity metal, and hanging from it, a two-headed aquila of the rendered in gold. It seemed tiny, lying there in the palm of his ceramite portrait. Beautiful. This one was a soldier of the Imperial Army. Rifleman. Garrow knew full well what the icon represented. Outwardly an ordinary trinket, the Aquila symbol was a touchstone for those who followed a secret faction within the secular. Those who carried such a thing were followers of the Lectitio Divinitatis, they who believed that the Emperor of mankind was worthy of God. These beliefs hid in shadow. They had no churches, no agency, but those who believed. The Emperor was the most powerful human being that had ever lived, an immortal psychic of matchless power, and he had dismantled every religion in human history in favor of his great empire. It was said that the Emperor himself did not wish to be worshipped as a living deity, but his deeds had taken that choice away from him. His true divinity was bestowed by those who had faith in his majesty. Before the Civil War, before the treachery, Garrow had held to the secular dominions of imperial truth. But since then, the things he had seen, the horrors and the miracles, he had been challenged. And along his path, the warrior had found a new, secret faith. There have no pretenders. Rubio examined the dead man. Those words you speak, as the rifleman perished, they were his last words. How did you know that? Garrow frowned, and at the icon formed. It does not matter. last ring. And as Garrow and the Psyker drew close, both Astartes saw that the earth about the hollow had fused into dull, glassy sheets by some tremendous discharge. The fusion blast, perhaps. Baron held a twisted curve of blackened metal in his grip, the fragment trailing broken cables and bunches of fibers that resembled muscle. His face was set in an expression that was equally sorrowful and angry. Another relic of the dead to lay at the bastard Warmaster's feet. Garrow's breath caught in his throat. The fragment was a piece of power armor, a pauldron warped by thermal shock. The original colors of the cracked ceramite sheath were barely discernible, marbled white with dark emerald details. But
Værmelding for i dag.
scarred, knitted symbol upon the armor piece that, for a moment, robbed Garrow of his voice. There, staring back at him, was the device of a white skull on a black sun, the sigil of the Death Guard Legion. He looked away, and with mounting dread saw what at first he had thought to be more drifts, blasted rubble, were the scattered remains of Astartes' war gear, left to rust and decay. Garrow's fingers tightened into fists, and he felt the mirror of Varen's cold fury rise in him. I know where we stand, Peter. This place, this graveyard. This is where my battle brothers perished at Horus Kal's command. Here they died when Mortarion, my own Primarch, gave them up. You said we should not stir the ashes of the dead man. You are mistaken. We need to hear them. We must listen to the tales of their deaths. And then, on the day the Turncoat Warmaster is given his due, we will be their voices. The Codicea gave a curt nod, the soft glow of his psychic hood framing his face. I hear them even now, at the edge of my senses, at the rush of the wind. Rubio did not complete his thought. Instead, he suddenly turned in place, bringing up his bolter to the ready, aiming into the gloom. They came out of the smoke haze slowly and carefully, making every effort to show no fear, no faith. What weapons they had were meager and barely enough to scratch the armor of the Astartes. There were fewer than 20 of them, a haggard, dispirited flock, young and old, male and female, their bodies malnourished and their faces hollow with hunger and fatigue. And yet, I sensed survivors. Here? The common men at that. It's not possible. It would seem otherwise. If they had made it to a refuge, waited until the bioagents dissipated. Do not underestimate the will to live. You need not be an Astartes to possess that trait. You! Lower your weapons in the presence of the Emperor's Astartes, or answer for it. An older man in a torn military jumpsuit stepped forward and gestured for the others to do as Garrow had commanded. Doffing his forage cap, he took a few paces closer.
Well, guys, I have arrived at my destination.
Your colors are unfamiliar. Dare to question us.
We carry the mark of the sigillite.
All you need to know is that we...
So I will see you later. Have a nice day or morning.